Throughout recorded history, mankind has been on an endless journey of discovery, a quest for knowledge. Ancient mariners sailed out into the unknown, guided only by the moon and the stars in the heavens above. We are immersed in wondrous technology, mostly developed in the past 50 years. Man's incredible advance has brought us to a point where now, even the conquest of the moon that guided those ancient mariners is just another page in history. The widespread use of digital technology will have as broad and sweeping an influence on our world as the invention of electricity. Just as sailors relied on this sextant to guide them across uncharted seas, computers have become the instruments we rely on to chart a course through the endless stream of information that we must deal with on a daily basis.
I hold in my hand another link in man's amazing technological progress. This DIM chip allows Macintoshes to access millions of pieces of information every second. This Science Museum's IMAX theater allows audiences to visit the depths of the oceans and the vastness of outer space using stereo sound and 3D images. Yet this iMac is an even more amazing image machine, one whose icon-based operating system can help to navigate the internet's vast oceans of data and manage the rapidly changing requirements of our information age. Hi, I'm Earl Nightingale, and I'd like to welcome you to Volume 1 of the MacMaster series, Master the Macintosh. The purpose of this tape is to, number one, get you up and running as fast as possible on your computer, and number two, to teach you all the basics that you're going to need to know to get the most out of your computer as time goes by. Now, don't forget, this isn't a television show. This is video instruction, and the best part is the rewind button. If you rewind the tape, rewind the tape, rewind the tape, I promise I'll go over it as often as you like. In my time as a consultant, I've encountered many questions, and I've tried to distill those out so I can answer the most common ones here today. Now, I'm going to be your guide, but you're going to do the exploring on your own. As we go through different sections of the tape, I'd like you to go to your computer and try the things that we've done. Look for them on your machine. The screenshots that we're going to be showing you today are the same screenshots you should see on your computer. I promise I'm not going to tell you to do anything that's going to mess up your computer or delete any of your work. You're going to see the Macintosh is a very fun computer to work with, and you're going to have a ball with it as time goes by. So relax. This is the best computer you can buy, and you made a great decision in purchasing one. Here's one important note. We're going to be using Macintosh System 8.5. Now, if you've just purchased your computer, it should come pre-installed. If you have an older computer, it's available for you to purchase. It's very fast, and it's a powerful new operating system, and it's something you should be using. I'm going to go over things that are different in earlier systems too, so don't worry. Everything on the Macintosh is about pictures. You use pictures to store things and define things on it. Video lets us do that very clearly. You're going to be able to see exactly what I'm doing, and I'm going to explain what I'm doing as I go through it. Let's talk briefly about how this tape is organized. In the first section, we're going to cover connecting and setting up your computer properly. I'm also going to explain what all the different parts of it are called. The second section is what I call a quick start guide, and the goal of this section is to get you up and running right away. We're going to go through everything on your computer screen, what it means, how it works, and then we're going to write a letter. When we do, we're going to cover basic text editing. I'm going to show you how to save something. We're going to talk about printing and how to set up your printer. We're going to save it to a disk. And finally, we're going to show you how to throw something away. The next section is our intermediate section, and that's the fun stuff. We're going to talk about how to customize your different screens. We're going to go into playing music CDs on your computer and have some more fun there. The final section is the advanced area, and I'm going to talk about setting the default preferences in the different parts of your computer. This is really going to get into the nitty-gritty about how the computer operates, and we're going to go into the actual system folder and how that works. Now, with your tape, you received an index of the topics that I'm going to cover. The way to use that is that make sure that when you start your tape in your VCR, you zero out the counter. You can look at the counter numbers on your VCR and match them up with the index that we gave you. Likewise, if there's anything you want to review in the future, you can find it quickly and easily. Just remember to make sure you zero out your counter when you begin the tape. Okay, now I made you a promise that I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to get up and running on your Macintosh. Now, that's a lot of material, so we're going to get started right now. The first thing is getting your computer set up and getting connected. Now, this is Apple's latest wonder, the iMac, and it's just a terrific computer. It's already, in fact, the best-selling computer in history. I took the iMac out of the box and put it on our beautiful marble pedestal here, and I took out the keyboard and the mouse as well. Now, the iMac uses connectors that are a little bit different than any other Macintosh, and they're called USB connectors, or Universal Serial Bus. Don't worry, you don't have to need to know what that means, but it just means it connects much easier than any other connector they've ever come out with. Take the connector, and you can plug it into either side of the keyboard, ideally the right side if you're right-handed and the left side if you're left-handed. Take the keyboard cable and open the small door on the right. Now, to open the door, you're going to pull down gently and outward, and it's not going to break easily, don't worry. Take your USB cable, put it in through the hole, and then inside you're going to see two ports. One is 1 and the second one is 2. It doesn't matter which one you connect to, the other one is there for future expansion. So I'm going to push this one into 1. There's one other thing I want to connect inside this door, and that's my phone cable. The iMac has a built-in modem so that we can get up and running on the internet very, very quickly. So as long as we've got the door open, I'm going to connect my phone cable to it as well. Thread the phone cable in through the hole in the door, and you'll see the little connector with the telephone on it. That's the one you want to plug it into. Plug it in, and just close the door. There's only one more cable to connect, and that's the power cable. The iMac has a really cool see-through cable. You can see all the wires inside of it, and that connects right here on the right rear of the computer. Once that's connected, all you have to do is turn it on, and we do that with this button right here on the top of the keyboard. Okay, now that I've shown you the correct way to turn your computer on, I want to make sure I go over the correct way to turn it off every time. You're going to go up to the special menu, pull your mouse down to shut down, and then turn it off. This lets the computer close out of anything that's running, and it also lets it save anything if you haven't already saved it in your applications, and it just makes sure that the computer shuts down in an orderly fashion. Okay, now let's talk about how to set up a G3 desktop computer. Now, the connectors are a little bit different than the USB connectors that we used on the iMac, and you have to be a little bit more careful putting them in. But if you just match up the male to the female side in the keyboard, it won't be a problem. Connecting the mouse to the keyboard, then I connect the keyboard cable to the computer itself. On the keyboard cable, you're going to see a little picture or icon of the type of connector that it is. And if you look on the back of your G3, you'll see a connector that matches up. All you have to do is match the plug to the icon on the back of your computer, and it'll fit perfectly every time. Now, to connect the monitor, I've purchased a PC or VGA monitor to use on my Mac, so I had to buy a $20 adapter to get it connected. I'm going to take the large end of the adapter and plug it into the monitor port on the back of my computer. I know it's the monitor port because it's got a little picture of a TV screen on it. To the adapter, I'm going to connect the monitor cable, and that goes in the back right here. Now make sure when you're plugging these in that they're nice and tight. Additionally, you might want to plug in the built-in microphone that came with your Macintosh, and to find that, look on the cable, you'll see a little microphone, and then on the back of the computer, you'll see another microphone. Plug it right in there. The last two things we need to connect are the power cables. To the Mac, and then to the monitor. Now, you may notice from time to time that you see a scan line going down our computer screen. The way that a monitor works is it has a beam of electrons that shoots across a phosphorus mask and displays the information on the screen to you. Over time, things that are always in the same place every day in and out, like your menus, can become burned in permanently. Now, the reason this isn't a problem when you're working on the computer is because things on the screen are constantly changing, and if they're moving around, it can't get burned in. If you're going to be away from your screen for 20 or 30 minutes, you might want to either turn your monitor off or put it into the sleep mode, because it'll just make your monitor work better over a longer period of time. Let's talk about what the computer is doing when it starts up. The computer is starting up and preparing to do a variety of different tasks. These small pictures that are going across the bottom of the screen are extensions and control panels that are loading into the system memory. Now, these are small, discrete little programs that start up as the computer is booting up. What they do is they extend the functionality of your computer and allow it to do a variety of tasks very simply and easily. A good example of extensions are printer drivers that load automatically. Likewise, your modem driver loads up automatically when the computer starts up. Now, I just said printer driver. This is a good point to stop and explain a little bit of the nomenclature that we use. A driver is a piece of software that comes with a peripheral piece of equipment that you buy. Now, that software is specific to the device that you have, and it allows the Mac to communicate effectively with it and to do a variety of different tasks. You've got to remember that, especially as far as your monitor is concerned, you have to make sure that all sources of radio frequency, like a radio or a cell phone, are far away from the monitor or any computer speakers you have. Speaking of speakers, make sure that if you use any speakers with your computer, that they're either electronically shielded or they're far enough away from the monitor so they won't affect the screen. If you have any sort of a magnetic field close to your monitor, you're going to start noticing waves or lines coming across it, and that's caused by the deflection of the electron beam that puts the picture on the screen. Let's talk a little bit about safety of magnetic media, like for floppy disks. I had a client who was having a problem with all of his data being lost suddenly and inexplicably. Now, he was a creative gentleman. He was a writer, in fact. We couldn't seem to figure out what the problem was over the phone, so I paid a call to him at his loft. His loft was set up in a very, very dramatic way. It looked like it was something out of a Terry Gilliam movie. This was a huge, wide-open loft with floor-to-ceiling windows, and his desk was set up in the very center of the loft, surrounded with filing cabinets coming out in a V formation. Now, as soon as I entered the loft, I saw that he was just crazy for Post-it notes. They were everywhere, all over the filing cabinets. As I got closer, to my horror, I realized that they were floppy disks being held in place by kitchen magnets. Now, that's a terrible idea. That was the source of his problem. Oh, additionally, a $1,000 recovery job we had done for him just 1 week before was sitting on 2 large lifting magnets. He said it was to help him keep it more handy. I very politely explained to him what was happening and the fact that disks and magnetic media have to be kept away from magnets. Remember, disks and magnets don't mix. If you get a magnet too close to any magnetic media, all the data will be lost. Okay, now that the Macintosh is running, let's talk about what the various parts of it are called. Up here, the first thing you see is the floppy drive. Now, a Macintosh can read and write 1.4 megabyte Macintosh floppy disks and its window disks. That's so that you can exchange information with other computers. Just below it, this is the CD-ROM drive. Now, this can read CD-ROMs and music CDs. In my time as a computer consultant, generally we get about 2 calls a year with people calling and telling us they have a broken cup holder on their computer. And the first few times it took us a little while to figure out what was going on. This is not a cup holder. Please do not put your coffee cup on top of this because it's going to break it. Beyond that, you don't want to get any fluid in your computer. Next to that, this computer has an iOmega zip drive installed, and this is an iOmega zip disk. Now, the floppy drive reads and writes 1.4 megabyte disks, but a zip disk is 100 megabytes. This is a great thing to have, not only for exchanging data with other people, but also for backing up all of your work. Welcome to the Quick Start Guide. Let's get started. Take a look at this monitor over here. Now, I've connected this monitor to my PowerBook so that I can do the things I need to do here, but you can still see what's going on. All this orange area on your screen, and we can change the color. I'm going to show you how to do that later. This whole orange area is called the desktop, and it's not unlike the desktop on a real desk. We can have things right there for us to get access to. Also on the desktop, we can see our storage device, and that's our hard drive. On this computer, it's labeled Macintosh HD. Now, that's the default name of every hard drive that ships with a new Apple computer. And a little bit later, I'm going to show you how to change the name of that. Also on the desktop, I have my printer, which is named Hemingway. Desktop printers are nice because you can drag things directly in them to print. And again, I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on. Also, we have the trash can. Now, the trash can, quite simply, is where you throw everything that you no longer want. It's important to remember that when you empty the trash, it's usually really gone without fast action and special software. So before you throw something away, make sure you don't need it anymore. Let's talk a little bit about the menus on the computer. That's those words and pictures on the very, very top of the screen. From left to right, we have the Apple menu. The Apple menu gets to the heart of our computer and really lets us control the way it functions. The File menu, the Edit menu, the View menu, the Special menu, and the Help menu. Further along to the right, you can see the time displayed, and by clicking on it just once, the date will come up. And the last item is the Applications menu. Now, that's that little smiley face right here. The Applications menu is what you access to find out what's currently running on your computer. Let's talk about using the menus. If you're using System 8 or higher, this is the way that you use your mouse in the menus. If you're using an older system, it's a little bit different, and I'll explain that in just a second. To access a menu, all you have to do is position your cursor over the name of the menu you want and push down the mouse button once. Now, the way that older systems differ from this is that you used to have to hold down the mouse button and then drag down to the item that you want. To select something in the menu, you're going to pull your mouse down to the item that you want and then click once again to select it. Everything on the Macintosh uses what's called a graphical user interface. Now, that means that everything on the Macintosh is a picture, and you select what you want by pointing and clicking to it with the mouse. Let's go ahead and double-click on Macintosh HD. Now, don't forget, that's the name of our hard drive where we store everything. Now, that's great. We've got a brand new window open. Let's talk about what we see in this window. This open rectangle is what we call a window, and it's how we view things on the Macintosh. At the top of it, we can see a little picture of our hard drive right beside the name Macintosh HD. Now, that just tells us what this window is. This open window is showing us our hard drive that's labeled Macintosh HD. Below that, we can see that we have 20 items in this window, and it also tells us how much space is available on our hard drive. If we go down the list of things, we can see different folders. Now, the Macintosh is organized by using folders. We store things inside of our folders, things like our documents, our letters, and our preferences. The way to access a folder is just like the way we access the hard drive. We just double-click on it, and I'm going to double-click right now on the Applications folder. Now, these are the applications that came bundled with my computer. What I generally do is rename this folder Apple Applications, because as I install new applications on my computer, I want to separate the ones Apple has installed with the ones that I purchased myself. Let's point out some other things in the open window. Now, we know this is the active window because it has these small lines next to the name here. At the upper left-hand corner of the window, this small box is called the Close box. Clicking this box will close any window on a Macintosh. Now, it's important for me to point out right now that the skills we're learning are going to be absolutely the same in every application you use. These are universal skills that you're going to use constantly whenever you use the computer. We just covered the Close box. If we go over to the right side, there's two more boxes. The first one is called the Zoom box. By clicking on that, the window expands to show us as much as possible of what's visible on the screen. Next to that is what's called the window shade button. Now, the window shade button lets you collapse a window so that you just see the title bar. Remember, the title bar is what has the name of the open window on it. If we click on this button, the window rolls up like a window shade. In older systems, it always makes a window shade type sound, but in System 8.5, we have to actually tell it that we want to play a sound when it does that, and we're going to get into that in the intermediate section. The border around the window is what we grab whenever we want to move the window around the screen. Click anywhere on the border and we can move it to wherever we want. Now again, if you're using an older system, this is an 8.5 innovation. 8.0 and lower, you have to click on the title bar to move your window around. If you see here on the top of the window, it says Name. Next to that it says Date Modified, Size, and Kind. This allows us to sort the contents of a window any way we want. By clicking on Date Modified, it changes the way all of our information is organized. Likewise, if we click on Size or Kind, the window will reorganize itself to reflect that. Now, here's another neat new innovation. Do you see this little triangle here on the right up here above the arrow key? If we click on this, it simply reverses the order of everything that we're looking at in the window. Click it again, and it returns to the way it was. Now, this window is small and we can see everything on it because we click the zoom box, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use something that's called the grow box, and that's located in the lower right corner of the active window. By clicking on this, we can resize the window that we're looking at. When we do that, we now see we have small arrows on the right side and on the lower part of our window. This lets us move up and down through the topics that we've got in our window, and the left and right one lets us move to see more information about it, like date modified, size, and kind. 8.5 has a really nifty innovation that we're going to come back to shortly that lets you get to those arrows much, much faster. If you want to move down one size of the window, simply click in the gray area above or below this small button that's moving. Likewise, you can just click on this box here and go up and down to see what's in the window without using the arrow keys. We move things on the mouse by using a skill called dragging. Dragging simply means pointing at something, clicking the mouse button down and holding it, and then dragging the item to another destination. Now, if we look at our window, we can see how everything is organized in a linear fashion, top to bottom. The Macintosh is all about seeing things the way you want to see it, so it lets us choose the way we view items. To change something, all we have to do is go up to the View menu and make a selection. Right now, we're doing what's called viewing as list. We can see everything in a window, and it's a great way to move through windows that have a large amount of data in them. We can also pick Icon, and that just shows us a small 3D picture of all the folders that are on there. To open up a folder, simply double-click on it, and it'll pop right open, and then you can see the contents of that. Now, there's one more view I want to show you, and that's the button view. If we select that, we have all of our folders as little buttons. Now, the only big difference between buttons and folders are that you only have to click once on a button to open it up. With the menu open, I move down along the menu commands, and you can see that the line that's currently selected is highlighted. Now, when I say highlighted, that means it's an area that's darkened. If you click on an icon, it'll appear to turn darker, or if you click on a menu command, it'll also appear darker. That's the system telling you what you've currently selected. To confirm your choice, click the mouse button once again. Now, let's go through the menus available in the Finder. Now, I just said Finder. The Finder is an application that loads automatically when your computer starts up. It's the application that lets you move through the graphical user interface. The first item is the Apple menu, and the Apple menu is our gateway to the computer's power. Now, we're going to come back to the Apple menu in more detail in the intermediate section, but let's move forward to what we're going to learn right now. I'm going to go through some of the things that I think are the highlights and explain basically how they work. The first item I'd like to show you is the calculator. Open up the Apple menu and choose it from the list. Now, the calculator works just like a normal calculator does. You can push the buttons either with your mouse button, or if you have a numeric keypad on your keyboard, you can use that to move through it much faster. The next item I want to show you is called Simple Sound, and this lets you select the sound that you use for alerts on your computer. Whenever you do something, or the computer has to get your attention, it's going to use the sound that you specify. Now, there are a number of sounds that you can choose from, including the droplet, the quack, and it's called Sosumi. But you can add in sounds whenever you want. Now, as you already know, I love my Macintosh, and it's nice to have it remind me that it loves me too. So I have a special sound that I put in.
Ooh, Earl.
Remember, every Mac comes with its own built-in microphone, and you can put in anything from a whisper to an air horn if you want. There are also lots of sounds available on the internet, and we'll be covering that more in our next video, Mastering the Internet on the Macintosh.
Ooh, Earl.
Here's how you do that. Go ahead and hit the Add button in this window and hit the Record button. When you do, you have up to 5 seconds to record any sound that you want. Now, if the first time it doesn't work when you try recording it, you're going to have to go to the Monitors and Sound Control panel and select the sound input, and we'll be doing that in just a minute.
Ooh, Earl.
Now, I'm going to cover the most commonly used options, but I encourage you to experiment and look through the menus. You can experiment and play with just about anything as long as it doesn't have erase or delete in it. You shouldn't do any permanent damage to your computer. Now, the first item in the File menu is New Folder, and that creates a new folder in whatever window is active on your computer. So if I select New Folder, I'm going to get a new empty folder named Untitled Folder on the desktop. The next item in our File menu is Get Info. By selecting Get Info, it gives us information about whatever item is selected, whether it be a folder, a hard drive, a document, just about anything. In this window, it tells us what it is, the size of it, where it's located, its creation date, and its modification date. Now, the modification date is the last date something in that item was changed. If you change the title of a letter, that'll be the new modification date. If you put something new into a folder, that'll also change its modification date. Here also we can put the label for it. You can personalize labels, and we're going to show you how to do that in the advanced section down the road, so let's not go into it here. You can also enter any comments into this window. If you have a folder that has some sort of data in it and you're not sure what it is, or you are sure what it is now but you're afraid you'll forget down the road, you can enter comments in here so that if you want to know what it's about, you can always turn to it later. The next item in the File menu is the Label command that we also saw in the Get Info command. By selecting one of these items, it simply changes the color of the folder and gives it a label. Now, what's important about this is that if we view by list, we have an option now to sort it by the kind of label that it has. The next item in our file menu is duplicate. Now, duplicate is going to make an exact copy of whatever is selected. By selecting sample folder, and the way I select it is by clicking on it just once, I then go down to the duplicate menu command. As you can see, it just made a copy of my sample folder and it labeled it by adding copy to the end of the name. That's how it makes a copy of something. Now, if I have lots and lots of information inside of that folder, when I choose duplicate, it's going to duplicate every single thing inside of that folder, not just a new empty folder with that name. So be careful with it. A lot of times I'll accidentally select duplicate when I'm clicking a hard drive and wonder why my computer says the next copy command is going to take 9 hours. Next is make alias. Now, this should probably belong in the intermediate section, but I'm going to touch on it just briefly here. An alias is like a pointer to something. If you think of an alias as a convenient sort of button to get at the object you want, you'll have a better idea of how it works. You can make an alias of an application, a document, a folder, a hard drive, even a network connection if you like. Now, by making an alias of something, you can put a shortcut to it anywhere on your computer without disturbing the organization that you've already built. For example, if you have the application Microsoft Word, which is a great word processing program, you might have put it inside of the Applications folder in your hard drive labeled Macintosh HD. Now, if this is a program you use every single day, it would be more convenient to have it in a place that was closer to the computer when you first started it up. This is a great time to make an alias. By making an alias of a sample item, it gives us another item just like the name of it, but remember, it's not like duplicate. It only is a pointer to the item that we want. Double-clicking on the alias of an item is exactly the same as clicking on the original item itself. In other words, if I have an alias of Microsoft Word on my desktop and I double-click on it, it's actually going to open up the application Microsoft Word. Now, aliases are going to be covered more in the intermediate section, so don't worry about it right now. I just want you to be aware of where the menu command is. The next item is Add to Favorites. Now, this is a new feature in OS 8.5. What this does is, by selecting an item by clicking on it once, and then choosing Add to Favorites, it's going to place an alias of it in a folder that's in our Apple menu. And I can check that right now. By going to the Apple menu and coming down to Favorites, there's only one thing in it, and it says Sample Folder Copy. Did you see that? It opened up the Sample Folder Copy window for me, just as if I double-clicked on it. So this is another nice organizational technique that was put into System 8.5. I think you're really getting an idea of how simplistically organized the Macintosh is and how easy it is to use. So I want you to go through some of the menus when we're done with this section and play around with it and have some fun. The next item in the File menu is the Find command, and this is an incredibly important function of the computer. Find will save you more time in locating things on your computer than anything else on the machine. In System 8.5, it accesses an even more powerful find engine that's called Sherlock, and it's really sort of exciting. So we're going to come back to that, and I think you're going to like it a lot. The only other things left in the File menu are Page Setup and Print Window. Now, we really can't use these yet until we set up a printer, so we're going to come back to them later. If we go to the Edit menu, the only choices we currently have are Copy, Select All, Show Clipboard, and Preferences. We're going to go into Cutting, Copying, Pasting, and Clear when we write our letter. Select All simply selects everything in whatever current window is selected. If you have 1,000 items in the window and you hit Select All 1,000 items will be selected together. So it's useful if you're trying to group things together, but be careful with it as well. The next menu is the View menu, and we've already looked at this briefly. We have choices to view as icon, as buttons, or as list. And the next section is new to System 8.0 and 8.5. We can view as a window or a pop-up window, and let me show you what that means. Right now we're looking at the Assistance window, and it's a normal window. If we go to the View menu and choose as pop-up window, watch what happens. It moves the open window down to the lower side of our screen, and now it has a tab where the title bar name was. If we click on the name Assistance, it's going to scoot right down to the bottom of our screen and collapse. Now, what's great about this feature is it lets you access frequently used folders or other items very, very quickly by having the pop-up window on the bottom of the screen. By clicking on Assistance, it'll open it right up for us. Additionally, you can move it around your screen any way you want and make it back into a pop-up window. Just drag it down to the bottom of the screen. The next item in the View menu is the Clean Up command. What this does is it makes sure that our window is as tidy as possible. If you look at our window right now, you can see that these items are lined up, but the sample folder copy is a little bit down. If I go to the View menu and choose Clean Up, it's going to change the order of our items, but it's going to put them all in a row. And it works this way for just about any window that you have open. Next is the Arrange command. Now, Arrange is mostly used when you're using the View by List command, but it will change the order of folders if you select it. It's just an organizational tool. You can arrange by name, date modified, date created, size, kind, or by label. And finally, the bottom of the View menu has our View Options command. This lets us choose the way things are viewed in a default fashion. We can change the icon size between small and large, and we can also have it snap to a grid or keep arranged in a particular way by name, date modified, date created, size, kind, and label. Now, you should play around with the View options and make it work for whatever your particular style of working is. The next menu is the Special menu, and it contains commands that are less frequently used but are very, very important. It's not, one of the options that's not available right now is the Empty Trash command, and let's talk about throwing things away quickly. I have the sample folder copy, which I really don't need anymore. So to get rid of it, I'm going to drag it to the trash can. I select it once by clicking on it, then hold the mouse button down and drag it over the trash can. Now, can you see that? When I moved it over the trash can turned dark or became highlighted. If I release the mouse button now, you'll see the trash can is full and the item has disappeared. Now, if I want to see what's in the trash can, I can just double click on it, and there's my sample folder copy right there. The Special menu has the Empty Trash command. Now, let me tell you one more time. When you empty the trash, it's usually forever. The only way to recover something that's been thrown away in the trash is by using special recovery software or by sending your drive to a data recovery company. Both of those are very expensive, and it's a 50-50 proposition to whether or not you're going to get your data back. So be careful when you throw something away. I feel pretty confident about throwing this away, so I'm going to select Empty Trash. The Finder gives me this window that says the trash contains one item, and am I sure I want to remove the item permanently? Now, in this case, I am, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. The Mac has lots of built-in safety features to try to prevent you from making serious mistakes, and that's just one of them. It asks you to confirm the fact that you want to delete something permanently. You're going to find lots of things like that on the Mac. It has redundant safety features that a lot of other computer operating systems don't have. The next command is the Sleep command, and the Sleep command puts your computer into a low power mode. Now, the Sleep command was originally only available on PowerBook computers and other portables to conserve battery power. But with new Energy Star compliant monitors and computers, what that means is they conform to strict government regulations about being able to conserve power when they're not currently being used. The Sleep command lets you put a desktop computer into a sleep mode as well. What it does is it dims the screen and it spins down the hard drive to conserve energy. If you've put your computer into the sleep mode, to wake it up, all you have to do is move your mouse around the screen or hit any key. Now, you can hit any key when it's in the sleep mode without danger of disturbing something. For example, if I hit the delete key to wake up the computer, nothing will be deleted. It'll just bring the computer back to life. I know you saw my PowerBook on the table inside, but I want to talk a little bit more about it right now. Apple makes a portable computer called the PowerBook, and it's really terrific. What's nice about a PowerBook, for me personally, is I use one at the office and at home, and it lets me keep a single copy of my files wherever I go. When we're on the road with a PowerBook, we have to remember to conserve our battery power. When we're plugged in at the office or at home, we want to make sure we get the best performance. Now, the way we do this is we use the Energy Saver control panel that's located in the Controls Panels folder. Access this by going to the Apple menu, click once to extend it, pull your cursor down to Control Panels. When it's on Energy Saver, click the mouse button one more time. Now, this is concerned with the amount of time that the computer uses when it's going into a sleep mode.
We have the power adapter setting and the battery setting. Now, when power is an issue, when you're running off battery power, you want to make sure that you've got it set to best conservation. We're not as concerned with speed as we are battery life. The other side of the coin is that when we're plugged in, we want to have the best performance out of our computer, so make sure this slider bar is all the way to the right for better performance. That's to make sure that we get the best performance out of our computer when power is not an issue. The Show Details button breaks down the settings that we just set. Now, Apple's settings are so good, I don't usually worry about it, but I want to mention them just briefly. The first item is for how long the system takes before it goes to sleep. The second item is for separate timing for display dimming. And the third item is separate timing for hard disk spin down. Now, this one item, hard disk spin down, is going to affect the amount of time that it takes for your computer to wake up when you put it to sleep. That's not so important unless you're really, really critical on power. The default settings Apple gives you are very, very good, and I just usually leave them set the way they are. The difference between better performance and better conservation on the road can mean up to about as much as an hour or an hour and a half of time. So you want to make sure this is set properly. It can mean the difference between getting your work done and not getting your work done while you're on the road. That's about it.
Let's get back to the menus. The next item is the restart command. Restart is used whenever you're installing any kind of new software, or if you just like to clear the digital cobwebs out of your system. Anytime you make a change in the memory of your computer, you're also going to have to restart the computer to have the changes take effect. The last item in the special menu we showed you already on the iMac, and that's the shutdown command. That's the proper way to turn off your computer each time. Now, sometimes you will have a problem on your computer and you'll be unable to use it, and that's what we call a freeze. Now, if that happens, usually you can't get to the shutdown menu to turn off your computer properly. And as a last resort, you can always pull the plug out of the wall. It's not going to hurt the computer any more than it would if you had tried to restart it by some other means, but sometimes that's the only option that you have. Now, people ask me frequently, should I turn my computer off when I'm not using it, or should I just let it run all day long? There's two fields of thought on that issue. Generally speaking, the power supply for your computer is something that burns out after a certain amount of time. Power supplies are so good now, however, it takes several years before they go bad. It's harder on the power supply to turn off your computer and restart it more frequently. So Apple used to advise not to do that, to leave your computer running unless you're going to be gone for the entire day. Now, I know a lot of people that use their Mac screen as a nightlight when they sleep. They only restart their computer in the morning to sort of clear the digital cobwebs out of it. I tend to turn off my computer if I'm going to be away for more than an hour or an hour and a half, and it's just a habit. If you use your computer and you want to turn the screen down either so that people can't see what's on it, use the sleep command. Otherwise, just go ahead and shut down. The next menu is the Help menu. Now, I can't overstress the importance of this menu and these features. The Macintosh has some of the best built-in help of anything in the world. You can go to the Help menu and enter in any kind of topic, or you can start going through the areas that are located here on the left. When you're looking for help with something and you're having a hard time with it, it always takes less time to access the Mac's built-in help than to try to figure it out on your own. I use help all the time, and it always saves more time than it takes. Another special kind of help accessible here is called balloon help. By going down to the Help menu and choosing Show Balloons, it accesses the macOS's built-in balloon help feature, and watch what it does. If I position the cursor over anything, the operating system is going to tell me exactly what it does. Now, I can use this on just about anything, and newer, more modern applications have this feature as well to help you figure out what's going on in that as well. So always go to Balloon Help and see if it's available in a new application or program. We talked briefly about the application menu, but I want to show you one more thing. In OS 8.5, if you click on this little line right next to the Mac OS face, it'll expand and show you the name of the active application. Now, the only application we have right now, if we click on it, is the Finder. So that's all that's there. And we're going to show you a little bit later on how you can use the application menu a little bit better. Now we're going to get into actually doing something with our computer. I'm going to close the Assistance window by clicking on the Close box, and I'm going to open up the Applications menu on my hard drive. Now, you should have a folder just like this on your computer, and you should have the same application that I have, which is called Simple Text. If you double-click on Simple Text to open it, you're going to access the Mac's built-in and bundled word processing software. Now, as word processors go, Simple Text is pretty basic featured. However, it's the default program that most of the README files that come with new programs in your computer use. I've opened up Simple Text, and it's given me a brand new blank document window labeled Untitled. You can see I've got a few more menus here than I had before in the Finder. What I'm going to do now is type a letter to Apple Computer. Give me just a second while I jot in a quick note. Okay, I've just written a short note to Apple Computer, and now we're going to learn how the Mac treats text on the computer. The first thing you should notice is that our cursor is changed from an arrow to an I-beam or insertion point. Now, this just lets us select where the cursor is going to be placed on our screen more precisely. The height of the I-beam is the current height of whatever line you're on right now, and you can position the little line right in between letters very, very precisely. It's a much easier way of using the cursor when you're editing text. Now, this is a really basic letter I've just entered in here. I'm going to start playing around with formatting, and you're going to learn how to do it too. The first thing I want to do in my document is change the typeface. Now, on the Macintosh, typefaces are called fonts, and the Mac can accommodate just about as many fonts as you'd like to use. There are many that are bundled with the computer. Similarly, many applications come with their own sets of fonts, and you can buy fonts from companies that are called font mills as well. Adobe is probably the most well-known one. This is kind of bleak, so let's go ahead and select all the text. There's two ways I can do that. I can use the Select All command from the Edit menu, or if I want to click outside to deselect it, we can drag over all of our text. Remember how we dragged something to move it to the trash? Well, you can do the same thing with what you're selecting on the Macintosh. You can see that the cursor is currently at the end of Earl Nightingale on the screen. What I want to do is I want to select all the text in the document. So I'm going to hold down my mouse button where it's blinking and then drag the cursor up to the beginning of Dear Apple. I know it's working because it's being highlighted as I'm doing it. Let's go to the font menu and see what choices we have. Quite a few. These are all different fonts that are available to your computer. Actually, most of these were bundled with the computer when it came from Apple. I don't know what these look like, so I'm just going to select something at random and see how it looks. Well, that's a little bit smaller, but not very impressive. How about capitals? No, still kind of boring. Let's go down to Rockwell. Okay, I kind of like that one, but it's still kind of small. I'm going to go to the Size menu and select a bigger size for the type that I have. It's currently on 12, and I know that because there's a check mark next to 12 in the Size menu. I'm going to bring it down to 24 so we can see it a little bit easier. Now, it's at the size I want, so I'm going to click anywhere in my document to get the highlighting gone, and now I can start working with it. I think, first of all, the mistake I made was I forgot to append Junior to my name, so I'm going to do that now. There's a couple ways to move the cursor around on your screen. You can use the mouse and position the insertion point wherever you want it. I want it at the end of Earl Nightingale, so I'm going to click there, hit the space bar, and type Junior. I can also move my cursor around by using the arrow keys on the keyboard. Can you see how the cursor is moving around? All I'm doing is pushing the up and down and the left and right arrows on my keyboard. Now, I think that my name should be in bold text because it's the most important part of the letter. So I'm going to go to the Style menu. Here I have choices for plain text, bold, italic, underline, outline, shadow, condensed, and extended. Now, you should play with these choices yourself, but I'm going to go ahead and make this bold right now. See that? It changed my typeface to bold. Now, in looking at this letter, I think Apple really should know how much I love their machines. So I'm going to introduce you to the concept of cutting, copying, and pasting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to position my mouse cursor at the period after computers, then drag the cursor by holding the mouse button down and moving the cursor across the letters in the document. Now I've selected the sentence, "I really love your computers." I'm going to go to the Edit menu now and choose Cut. It just disappeared, and the text was stored in a special place on your computer called the clipboard. Now I say, well, maybe I should make this a PS. So I'm going to move it down to the end of Earl Nightingale Jr., hit Return, type PS, then go back to the Edit menu to access another command called Paste. Did you see that? It put my text in just where I wanted. Now, you can cut and paste just about anything on your computer. Sounds, pictures, internet addresses, or obviously text. Now, once something is stored in the clipboard, once you either cut it or copy it, it's in the clipboard until you cut or copy something else. I think this should go back at the beginning of the letter as well, besides being a PS. So I'm going to move my insertion point up before everything and go to the Edit menu and choose Paste again. And it puts it right back where I had it originally. Since they should really know how much I love their computer, let's do it a couple more times just to drive home the point. As you can see, it just pasted in the sentence 2 more times. Now that I've finished my very redundant letter to Apple Computer, I need to save it so that I can have access to it whenever I want to use it. Saving is a very, very important skill, and we're going to do it right now. To save a document, I'm going to go to the File menu and come down to the Save command and click the mouse button again. Now, this is called a Save dialog box, and it's telling me a couple of different things. Number one, at the top of it, where I see Applications, that means it's currently trying to save this document in the Applications folder. Now, that's not where I want to save it. I want to save it on the desktop, so when we're all done with it, we can throw it away very easily. Also, at the bottom, it gives me how I want to save the document. So the first thing I want to do is move to the desktop, and I can do it one of 2 ways. I can go up where it says Applications and then drag down to Desktop and release the button, or I could have simply hit the Desktop button here. Now, I want to save this document as a letter to Apple Computer. When I hit the Save button, it's going to save the document permanently. If the power went out right now, my work would be okay because I've already saved it. If the power went out before I saved my document, it would be gone forever with no hope of retrieval. So don't forget to save. It's probably the most important thing you can do. Save, save, save. I can't stress that enough. Some programs have an autosave feature that you can set in one of the preferences dialogues for it. Autosave simply means that either at a certain number of keystrokes or after a certain number of minutes, the document will automatically save itself. Now, if you're having trouble remembering to save, this is probably a pretty good idea, but try to get into the habit of saving every time you're at a natural break. Here's a great opportunity to show you one of the magic commands of the Macintosh, the undo command. I'm going to do something really dumb. I'm going to erase my name completely. Now it's gone. Completely. I didn't copy it, I didn't cut it, I just erased it. Once I did that, it was a big mistake, so I want to put the data back. If I go to the Edit menu and choose Undo, it magically puts my data back into the picture for me. This is an incredibly important command. If you're working with something and it suddenly changes into something radically different, take your hands away from the keyboard and make sure that's exactly what you wanted to happen. If it's not, go to the Edit menu and choose Undo. Now, this feature is available in most every program on the Macintosh, so make use of it. It's important to remember that you can only undo something if it's the very next thing you do. So when you have something go wrong, move your hands away from the keyboard, evaluate the situation, and if necessary, choose Undo. Now, let's talk about one other nice thing that's called Find and Replace. Now, in here, I've said computers several times. And I say, well, I'd really like to change what that says. Instead of saying, I really love your computers, I want to change it to, I really love your Macs. So how do I do that? I can go to the Edit menu and say Replace. It'll say find what word, and I'm going to say computers. Replace with what? I'm going to say Macintosh. If I go to the Edit menu and choose Replace, I can tell it to find all instances of computer and replace it with the words Macintosh. If I then click Select All, it goes into my document and changes every occurrence of computers to Macintosh. Did you see that? One really nice feature of this is if you're writing a long document, say a report on something, and you happen to use a long company name or person name in it, let's say it's Amalgamated Freightway Lines, you can just say AML all the way through your document. Then when you're all finished, go back, put in AML in the find box, and replace it with the full name of it. It's a great way to speed up the work that you do in a word processing document. Since I just changed it, I need to save again to make sure it's there. So I go back to the File menu and choose Save Again. It's that simple. The next command I want to talk about quickly is the save as command, and it sort of functions as a safety net to preserve the original integrity of your work. Let's say that you're writing a letter that is going out to a single client or friend, but most of the letter can be sent out to your other clients as well. All you need to do is change a certain amount of data in it. What we can do is save the original letter, let's say it's to Mr. Jones. Then when we change what's different about the next letter, we can save as. We access Save As by going to the File menu and choosing Save As. And instead of saving this document as Apple Computer, I'm going to say save it as letter to Mr. Smith. When I say save, two things are going to happen. Number one, it's going to save my document on my desktop with the new name, and it's going to change the active document that I'm working on to whatever that name is changed to. As you can see in my title bar, it's changed to letter to Mr. Smith. Now if I wanted to, I could go through this letter, change any text that I wanted to specific to my letter to Mr. Smith, and then save again. Now don't forget, my original document, the letter to Apple Computer, is still available to me. Let's see how we get back to that original document, the letter to Apple Computer that we were just working on. Take your mouse, go up to the File menu, and select Open. Now, opening something is like double-clicking on it. We just want to get access to it, and we want access right now. As you can see, we now have an Open dialog box, and it's similar to the Save dialog box, except it doesn't give us a place to type in a new name. All I have to do is select the letter to Apple Computer, and either hit the Open button or just double-click on the name. And there we are. We're now back to our original letter exactly the way we saved it last time. Now, if I would go through this letter right now by accident and erase most of it, I'm okay, even if I do something else, because I can close the document, tell it to not save the changes I made, and then reopen the document that I saved, the letter to Apple Computer, and my work is untouched. This is really handy if you have something happen to your work and undo isn't an option anymore. Now, let's say that you want to save your letter to a disk outside of your computer. You want to save it to a floppy disk or a zip disk. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. In my hand, I've got a normal 1.4 megabyte formatted floppy disk. I'm going to put it into my floppy drive, and as soon as I do, the computer's going to look at it, make sure it's the correct kind of disk for my computer, and then mount it on the desktop. And you can see right here, I have a little picture that looks just like the floppy disk, and it's labeled Untitled. The reason it's labeled Untitled is because it's a brand new disk, and I haven't saved the name of the disk or put anything on it yet. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and save my letter to Apple Computer on it, and here's how I do it. Since I haven't changed anything in my original document, I'm going to have to use the Save As command, because Save is only accessible when you've just changed something. If I go to the File menu and choose Save As, it gives me the Save dialog box we saw a moment before. Now, instead of just going ahead and saving to the desktop, I want to save it to my floppy disk labeled Untitled, and this is how I do it. I select Untitled in the upper portion of my screen, and then I can either double-click on it or hit the Open button. Now, do you see how on the top here it's changed to Untitled? That means that that's my current directory. In other words, I'm looking at my floppy disk right now. I want to save it with the exact same name, so all I do is say Save. Now, saving to a floppy disk takes a little bit longer than it does to a hard drive because it's not quite as fast, but it's already done. The first thing I need to do is get my floppy disk out of the computer so I can put it into a safe location. This is how I do that. To eject a floppy disk, or for that matter, any kind of removable media, you've got a couple of options, but the easiest, simplest way is to click on the disk and just drag it to the trash can. Now, I know that sounds like you're throwing away everything on the disk and you're going to erase it, but I promise you, you won't. I highlight the disk with a mouse cursor and then drag it down to the trash can. And here's my disk. It's ejected and ready for me to put into a safe place or send it to someone that might want to have access to my document. Now, you can throw away a CD-ROM the same way to make it eject the disk, a removable disk like a zip or a jazz disk, or even if you have a network server mounted, and I know we haven't gone into that yet, you can get that off your desktop by dragging it to the trash as well. Okay, it's time for us to talk about printing. And initially, people have a lot of confusion about how to set up and use their printer, and it's really quite simple. Number one, make sure you refer to the documentation that came with your printer, because each has its own special software, remember we call those drivers, that let your computer use it properly. When you want to pick a printer, I'd like you to think of choosing the printer, because the application that we use to select the printer is called the chooser. To access it, go to the Apple menu, come down to Chooser, and then click again to select it. Now, here is my chooser. In it, I have several choices on my left. Do you remember when we were talking about drivers? These are all printer drivers, with the exception of AppleShare. AppleShare is Apple's built-in networking function. And if I had other computers connected on the network right now and click there, I'd see them. Now, the only printer I've got with me today is my LaserWriter 4600 PostScript model. For all Apple LaserWriters produced in the last few years, the default driver is LaserWriter 8. And I'm going to click on that on the left. And then on the right, you can see how that printer popped up very quickly? That's my LaserWriter that I've named Hemingway. So I'm going to click on it on the right, and then once I do, all I have to do is close the chooser. Now, usually you'll get a dialog box telling you that you want to make sure that in any open application you go to Page Setup. And that's just to confirm between you and the application what printer that you really want to use. Let's do that now. We go to the File menu and go to Page Setup. Now, Page Setup gives us some interesting information. We can select the scale of the document. That means if we've got a large document and we want to reduce it, we can make it smaller. You can also make something bigger, but using either one of these options is really going to slow down your printing time. I told it to format for Hemingway because that's the printer I'm using, and the paper I'm going to change to US letter size because that's what I'm using, 8.5 by 11. And then I say OK. That's really all I have to do. All I'm doing is making sure that the computer understands which printer I want to use. To print the document, now all I have to do is go back to the File menu and choose Print. Now, if you can see in simple text, it's giving me a couple of different options. I can either print or print one copy. The only difference is when you choose Print one copy, it's not going to give you a dialog box. You've already told it how many numbers of copies you want, so it's just going to go ahead and do it without confirmation. This is a standard printer dialog box, and really what it's asking us to do is tell us how many copies we want, what pages, the range of pages we want to print, and the source of the paper that we want to use. Since we only have one page, it's not so important here, but if we had a larger document, we could say that we only want to print from, say, the second to the third page, and only those pages would come out. I'm going to tell it to print all the pages since there's only one, and only print one copy. All I do is click on the print button, and it's that simple. Now, if you keep an eye on Hemingway on the right-hand side of my screen, you'll see that a little page just appeared on it. That means that my printer has got a currently active print job. This is called desktop printing, and it's a really handy way to see what's going on. If I want to go and double-click on Hemingway, I get a dialog box, and it tells me what's going on the printer right now. It's printing a letter to Mr. Smith, and the status is it's preparing the data. There's only page 1 of 1, and I only want one copy. Now, as soon as the printer has all this information, this is going to disappear from Hemingway because the printer's already got it and has printed out the document. It only takes a few seconds. This is a nice, fast printer. When you're printing in color or you're printing very, very high-resolution documents, that means it has a lot of things in it that make the file bigger and bigger. It's going to take longer to print that kind of a document than just a simple text document. Okay, now that my printer's given me my document, we can take a look at it. Now, the Macintosh pioneered this. This is called what you see is what you get. Can you see how what printed out is exactly what's on my screen? All things on the Macintosh should be this way. What we can do is we can see what's going to come out of our printer right on the screen, and it's usually going to be exactly the same way. By the way, if you ever hear the term WYSIWYG, that's how we abbreviate what you see is what you get. WYSIWYG, it's sort of a techie term. Okay, we've gone over how to print a document and how to select a printer. And this is a really important skill, and I think I've explained it pretty clearly. If you have trouble with it, go back and watch the section again on how to use the chooser and how to get it set up. Or you can go ahead and check the documentation that came with your own printer. But it's more or less as simple as I've explained here. We're almost done with the Quick Start Guide, and there's just a few things I'd like to go over before we finish. Remember when we were using cut, copy, and paste? There's one more thing I didn't cover, and that's called dragging things. If I go ahead and select the first sentence of my paragraph here, I really love your Macintosh. Once it's selected, if I click on it with the mouse button, I can drag my sentence anywhere I want in my document and then release the mouse button. Did you see that? It moved my text right to the new place. If I do that and I decide I don't want it, no problem. All I have to do is go back to the Edit menu and select Undo, and it's gone. Okay, we've finished with our letter, we've saved it, we've printed it out, and we've also saved it to a floppy disk. So we're all done with this. It's time now to quit the application. Now, quitting an application is a little bit different than just closing a document. When you quit an application, that means you're completely finished using that application for a while. So the way I do that is I go to the File menu and I choose Quit. Quit is always found at the bottom of the File menu in every application you go to. I go to the File menu and choose Quit. Okay, we're through with the Quick Start Guide now, and it's time for you to go to work. I'd like you to stop the tape and go play with your Macintosh for a while. I've given you most of the basics that you need to really get going, and so use your computer and have fun with it. Now, a good idea is to keep a pad and pen next to your computer as you're working and jot down any questions that you might have. Now, we'll probably cover those in the next 2 sections, so don't worry about it. The most important thing is to have fun. Oh, to get you started, I'm going to go ahead and open up a new document. Try writing a letter and playing with it just the way we did. Have fun.
I've given you the basics. Get a load of him, will you? What makes him such an expert? The Mac is my shack, Jack.
Oh, exclaim. I think he's kind of cute. And I like a man with brains.
Amber, what you doing listening to him? I'll show y'all round. Watch this. Like I said, Mac is my shack. I like to keep my digs neat and get around quick on my own home street. Let me show you some tricks us insiders use, like contextual menus. If I'm working in a folder somewhere and I decide that I want to save something or label it or throw it away, instead of clicking on it to choose it and going all the way up to the menus to do what I want to do, all I have to do is hold down the Control key, and when I click on the item, I get a little menu of choices right there that lets me toss the trash or label the good stuff or whatever I want to do a lot quicker and easier.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Like I said, I'm quick on my feet. When I'm zipping around on Mac, I may have windows and applications opened all over the place. Variety is the spice. And a neat desk is definitely a sign of a boring punctuation. But if friends show up unexpectedly, I like to tidy up in a hurry. So I just use Power Close by holding down the Option key while clicking on the close box. I clean up the place in a flash, which of course makes room for friends dancing or whatever the moment calls for in the exciting life of a thrilling explanation point.
Ooh, X.
Oh yeah, one last little bit before the Earl of Thrills returns. If you've got a lot of friends like I do, cleaning up may not be good enough. You might have to make a few adjustments to create enough room for a really decent party. If you have a multi-scan monitor, the word to remember is resolution. Under the Apple, go to the control panel and choose Monitors and Sound. There you can zoom in and out by adjusting the resolution if you want to have a closer view of the smaller area, like a more intimate party, if you know what I mean. Then choose a lower resolution like 640 by 480. See the effect? For a wider perspective, go with a higher resolution. Everything's a lot smaller, but you can fit more of it in the same space.
Welcome back. Now that you've got the basics down, we're going to get into the intermediate section and really have some fun. The first thing I need to do is quit this word processing application. In this section, we're going to put the fun into functionality and really show you how to customize the computer just for you. We're not going to go through everything right now, but I want you to explore the things that we don't touch on your own. I'm going to go through some of the things that I think are the highlights and explain basically how they work. The next thing we're going to look at is the jigsaw puzzle, and this is just fun. You can create a new puzzle with the picture that's in here, and it's a map, and then just move the pieces around. Now, here's a quick tip. If you have a picked file, now that's a special kind of format for a picture of something that you want, you can cut and paste it right into the jigsaw puzzle. Play around with it. It's really, really easy, and you paste it in just as if you were working with text. The next thing in the Apple menu I want to show you is the Apple CD audio player. Access your Apple menu and come down to CD audio player. Now, I don't have a CD in here right now, but it works just like your home CD deck. You've got buttons for stop, play, eject, and if you forget what the buttons do, don't forget to go up to Balloon Help, and it'll tell you which each button does on it for you. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the control panels. Now, this is really going to let you customize the interior workings of your computer. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to show you a few to see how they work. They're found under the Apple menu and in the Control Panels folder. The first thing I want to show you is called the Date and Time Control Panel, and this is where you correct the date and time on your computer. You can also have it to set daylight savings time automatically, set if daylight savings time is in effect. You can also set your time zone here, and this is important because it's used in other functions of your computer. Things like internet web browsers will get your time zone and your address and put them automatically into your email. Additionally, new to System 8.5 is to use a network time server. Once you set this up, you can synchronize your Mac's clock with an atomic clock that's available on the internet. And then the final thing is for clock options. In clock options, we have several different things that we can customize. Whether or not we want to display the time with seconds, append AM and PM to our time. We can even have it chime on the hour, half hour, quarter hour, whenever. So have fun with it. The menu bar clock always appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. The next control panel I want to show you is the mouse control panel, and this is where you set up the way that you use the mouse personally. You can adjust the speed at how fast it moves across using mouse tracking. Now think of mouse tracking as gears for your mouse. If you have it set to move fast, a small movement on your mouse pad is going to move it all the way across the screen. If you're doing very, very careful precision work, you might want to put it to a slower setting so it can move slower. By the way, that's also a good tip if you're playing a game. Have it at the slowest possible speed setting. You can also adjust your double-click speed, and if you've got a PowerBook like I do, you can have your mouse track across the screen as you move it. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the control panels. Now, this is really going to let you customize the interior workings of your computer. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to show you a few to see how they work. We go to the Apple menu, down to control panels, and the first one I want to show you is the appearance control panel, and this really lets you change how the way your computer looks. It has everything to do with appearance. We can select themes that Apple has given us with our computer, or you can make your own. Now, a theme changes not only the desktop pattern, your highlight color, but it also changes the font that your words on the menus are displayed in. So you can play around with that a little bit. In the appearance section, it lets us change the appearance of our computer, change the highlight color, and select variations that we want to do. You can also customize a color by going to Other, and it'll let you pick from a variety of different options. If we go to the font section of the appearance control panel, we can choose our system fonts and the view font. Now, you can play around with these, but the ones Apple gives you are very, very good. I've had problems before of using the wrong font and having it not fit in the space that Apple provides. So if it does change too much to your liking, go ahead and set it back to the defaults. The next section is the desktop pattern, and you can really have a good time here. You can change the color of your desktop, or you can put a picture in if you like. As you can see, control panels give you lots of choices. Let's move on to the advanced topics now. What? That was too fast? Okay, let me go through it one more time, and let me show you how I did that again. In the appearance control panel, what you're going to do is you can select a pattern that you want. Now, I've got a picture up right now, so before I can place a pattern, I have to remove the picture first. I remove the picture, select the pattern that I want, then hit the Set Desktop button. When I do that, it'll set my desktop pattern for me. Now, to set a picture, you want to hit the Place Picture button and then navigate to wherever your pictures are on your hard drive. Now, there's usually some sample desktop pictures in the Sample Desktop Pictures folder in your Apple Extras folder on your hard drive, and that's where I am right now. To place a picture, select the picture that you'd like to put, and it'll give you a little preview of it first. Choose the picture, then hit the Set Desktop button. It's that simple.
Well, If he considers that intermediate, I'm gonna have to change my name from Exclaim to Accelerated.
You want some tips? Watch this. I've got another little trick that comes in handy. I always hate trying to open up stuff when I've got my hands full, which as it turns out is usually the case when I'm carrying around something looking for a place to put it. So that's why pop-up folders are so nice. If I drag something to a folder with a mouse and just hold it over the folder for a moment, then open sesame. The folder pops open so I can see what's inside.
Ooh, X.
And if there's a folder inside that one, the same thing. Just hang out and voila, open sesame again, as many times as I want. The nice thing is if I don't want to put it there, then I turn away. It closes itself, and if I do leave it there, it stays open so I can see where I left it. It makes it easy to keep from losing my stuff.
Wow, X. Lots of closet space.
Well, that's nice, X, but Macs are capable of multitasking, you know.
If you're like me and always juggling your busy schedule around, the Mac's application menu really makes it easy. Right now, I'm on the internet, working in a word processing application and using the graphing calculator, all at the same time.
Ooh, Earl.
Top that, Mr. X.
All right.
I've got a nice new one from 8.5. You may have noticed the new title bar icons. But did you know that by clicking on that icon, you can move that object to a new folder or location without closing it first?
I didn't know that.
It's time to start talking about the advanced topics. Now, these aren't super power user guru tips, but they are more advanced things in the Macintosh that you want to be a little bit more careful with when you're using them. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be the Extensions Manager in the Control Panel, and let's go there right now. The Extensions Manager allows you to set the startup documents that load automatically when your computer is started up. Do you remember when we showed you the small things going across the bottom of the screen? Those are extensions and control panels. And in the Extensions Manager, we select the ones that we want to load automatically each time the computer turns on and off. As you can see, we've got a normal window here. We have a selected set of My Settings, and that just means it's a customized set. The first thing it shows us are the control panels. And in here, these are all the things in the control panels folder. If we go further down the list, we get into the extensions that are available. Now, the extensions that your computer comes with are the ones that Apple ships with it. But as you add more applications to your computer, more extensions will be put into your system folder automatically. The only problem arises is that occasionally you'll get an extension that causes a conflict or creates a problem in your computer. When that happens, you have to figure out which one is the offending extension and then turn it off. That's what the Extensions Manager is for. The other reason you use the Extension Manager is it allows you to turn off extensions that simply aren't needed. Do you remember when I showed you the Chooser? The Chooser had a number of different printer drivers, and we don't need most of them. All I personally need is the LaserWriter 8 driver. In the Extensions Manager, we can turn off the ones that are unnecessary, and I'm going to show you how to turn 2 of those off right now. One of the things that was in it was the Color StyleWriter 1500, and another thing was the Color StyleWriter 2500. Now, these are both terrific printers, but unfortunately, I don't have either one of them here with me today. So I'm going to go ahead and turn them off by clicking in this small box on the left. Now, what effect will that have on my computer? Well, it'll have no effect at all when you restart the computer as far as using the existing printer you have. And it's not throwing them away, so if down the road someone should give you a new printer, you've still got the driver and all you have to do is activate it. The reason that you turn an extension off is because each one of these little documents takes up memory on your computer. So that if you remove the ones that are unnecessary, your computer will actually run a little bit faster. When you have a set that's perfect for the way you work, hit the Duplicate Set button. That will take the current set that's selected and allow you to save it under a new name. I'm going to call it Earl's Set. Now, when I say OK, that lets me save the entire set of instructions that I've just given it. If I have a problem with this, or if I want to set up another set, say for faxing, I can go to that set when I want to. Play around with the Extensions Manager, but be careful not to turn off extensions if you don't know what they are. It's time for us to talk about a subject that a lot of people have some confusion about: memory. Let's go ahead and open up the Memory Control Panel on your computer. We need to discuss what memory is first of all. RAM, or random access memory, comes on chips that are actually physically inserted into your computer. Think of RAM like desk space. The more RAM that you have, the more things you can have open at one time. You use RAM to open up applications and to run them. Now, this is completely different from hard drive space. Hard disk space is the storage that you have. Now, that's taken up very, very slowly as your applications and documents advance. They really don't have a relationship with one another. A couple of other neat things in this control panel are virtual memory and the RAM disk. Now, virtual memory allows you to use a small portion of your hard drive space as if it were RAM. The only drawback when you're using virtual memory is it's slower than physical RAM. That's because your hard drive is slower than the chips that are inserted on your motherboard to use your memory. If you use this little button on the right, you can increase the amount of virtual memory that you have. The only warning I'd give you is that if you increase the size of your virtual memory larger than the size of the physical memory you have on your computer, you're going to notice a big slowdown in your performance. A little bit of virtual memory is very, very good, and it gives you a little bit of buffer to go to. But on the whole, you don't want to use too much of it because of the performance compromise you make. The next setting is RAM disk. Now, this is really an advanced topic. A RAM disk uses part of your built-in physical RAM as if it were a hard drive. Now, why would you want to do this? With a RAM disk, you can store things that you work on to use them much, much faster. For example, let's say that you're editing one of your home movies that you've put into your Macintosh. It's very easy to do that. The only problem is that it's very, very slow. By making a RAM disk and putting what you're working on that RAM disk, you can work with it very, very quickly. So try to remember that, especially if you get into any sort of video editing or 3D work. It'll really save you a lot of time. We're going to be covering that more on the advanced tape as well. Do you remember when I showed you in the appearance control panel how to check smart scrolling? Let me show you what that looks like right now. I'm going to double click on my hard drive icon to open it. Can you see these bars on the right hand side of the screen that I can move up and down? Additionally, now my arrow keys are at the bottom of the screen instead of one being at the top and one being at the bottom. It's an innovation in System 8.5 and it's not available in previous systems, but I wanted to show you just quickly how it works. It's that simple. I'd like to talk to you now about something called Adobe Acrobat. Now, Adobe Acrobat is something that should have shipped with your computer, but if not, it's available for free at the Adobe website. What Adobe Acrobat does is it allows you to view documents in the original format that they were created, even if you don't have the application that used it. Adobe Acrobat is located inside the Applications folder and inside the Adobe Acrobat 3.0 folder. I'm going to open it up right now. Now, Acrobat is a wonderful device because, number one, it allows you to share files not only with Mac users but with PC users in exactly the same format that you created them, even if the person that you've given it to doesn't have the original fonts or pictures. What Acrobat does is embed them into it. Now, we just opened up Acrobat, but since we haven't specified a document for it to open, I'm going to do that now. I go to the File menu and choose Open. Now, the document I want to open is called Acrobat PDF, and it really explains how Acrobat works. By the way, PDF stands for Portable Document Format. Using Acrobat, some of the controls that you'll probably use most often are this magnifying glass with the plus sign in it, and this lets you select an area that you'd like to zoom into. You can also use the page forward button, the page backwards button, and then the last button that's really useful is the one that moves you all the way to the end of the document. Your computer should automatically open up Acrobat whenever you load a PDF by double-clicking on it. If not, you may have to get it off the Acrobat website or check the original CD that came with your computer. It's that simple. It's time for us to talk about SCSI devices. Now, that stands for Small Computer Serial Interface. Two examples are this Jazz drive here made by iOmega and this external hard drive made by the APS Corporation. What's nice about an external drive is it's handy if you want to back up your data, or if you run out of space on your hard drive and you need more room for your creative work, you can use it. Now, the Jazz drive uses these 1 gigabyte disks. Now, that's 1 billion bits of information. And it's very, very small, and it's very, very hardy as well. You can store just about anything on one of these disks, and if you want to, you can archive it. These are also terrific for backup purposes. Now, the external APS drive, mine is a 9 gigabyte external drive, and I use it in my work. Now, this size is a little excessive for most users, but if you're doing professional video work or editing, this is just about the right size. Hard drives come in sizes from 2 gigabytes up to 36 gigabytes, but those are pretty expensive. Now, I restarted my computer after I connected my external hard drive, and I want to show you what it looks like on the desktop. As you can see, it's just another icon like my hard disk icon, and it's accessible exactly the same way as my original one. This is the drive I use when I'm working. Now, if you look on the desktop also, you can see the RAM disk that we were talking about a little bit earlier. It functions just like another hard drive, and you can use it just as if it were one.
That reminds me, one last little tip I'm gonna give you. Option clicking. It's the key to keeping neat. If you got something going like an open folder, but another catches your eye and you want to open that baby up and leave the other behind, well, just hold down the Option key. Click your new conquest, and when that baby opens, the other will close.
Ooh, X, you're the most.
Well, folks, that's gonna have to be all for now. This X has some exciting new claims to state.
We're living in a magical time today. It truly is the information age. There are multi-billion-dollar companies, you've heard of them, they're software companies, whose only purpose is to help you gather and use information better. You've probably heard the term future shock before, and all future shock is being overwhelmed with the technology around us. Things are getting smarter, easier, faster than they ever did before, and it's an amazing time to be alive and working with it. Your Macintosh and this series of tapes is going to help you unlock the power that's available to you. I know we haven't talked much about the internet yet, and you can buy our second tape, Volume 2, Mastering the Internet, and we're going to talk about all the amazing things you can find on the web and on the internet. Did you know that there are over 10,000 new websites a day that come onto the internet? If you're not current with technology and you can't access the information, you're going to be left behind in the next millennium. So stay tuned. We've got a lot of exciting things coming to you. Keep checking out our webpage at www.masterthemacintosh.com, and we'll bring you along with us as we move into this exciting new frontier of technology.